The stock market is now starting to figure out what I keep telling you. This is not going to be a regional war. And it's much weaker. We've been led to believe, as I've been telling you. And again, to be watching, I've been trolling the bears a little bit about the Black Monday crash. At the bottom, you got some of them saying it right now. The bears are about to get the next leg down of the bear market. I continue to tell you, again, the market's bottomed. Any pullback is going to be a higher low. We're going to go higher, in my opinion. I don't think we reach those levels. Now, the market is shrugging off tensions in the Middle East, these geopolitical issues. Sometimes they rattle markets for a little while. Other times, knee-jerk reaction like we had on Friday, and then the market shrugs it off. Which is this? We'll see. It's likely going to end a lot quicker than everybody thinks. I told you, it's not going to be a regional conflict. It's going to be World War III, as we keep being told. Being told. A little tongue-tied there. Sorry. Iran's shot about 350 ballistic missiles at Israel. Most of them have been intercepted. The weekend, it was up to 17 have gotten through. They're targeting billion population, so Israel struck their oil sites. You'll be watching. Does that rattle markets or not? My signals are still bullish. I mean, we've had this sell-off. My signals are still bullish. I need to believe we're likely going to go to the trend line I've been talking about ever since the bottom, going and making new highs above the February peak. But Iran has shot off about 350 ballistic missiles. They're going to run out of missiles that can reach Israel, and that's why this is going to end. Not going to be a regional war. It's not going to be World War III, as the bears keep saying. They've been saying this. We go the next leg down of the bear market all the way back up. I continue to remain bullish. I think we're going to get a peak. Once my signals start turning bearish, we're going to get a pullback. My signals are still bullish. Through them over the weekend. You watch my videos, you know that my signals remain bullish. I remain bullish. I still think we go higher. Even if we get a pullback, I still think we go much higher over the summer or the fall. I've been trolling the bears a little bit with my thumbnails. Here comes the stock market crash, Black Monday crash, because I'm saying that, and we keep going higher. This issue could rattle markets, especially if the United States gets involved. Possibly but it's going to give us a pullback. If this is the catalyst, it's going to be a pullback. Not going to go down and take out the April low. I keep saying it. And this is likely going to end sooner rather than later, because Iran had less than 1,000 long-range ballistic missiles that can reach Israel. They've got right now, after firing about 350 of them, about another 350 to 500 left. Okay, when they run out, and that's why they're very best to get a ceasefire, because they know that the regime could be toppled. Once they run out of ballistic missiles that can reach Israel, they're defenseless. It's over. This is what I keep saying. They're in a much weaker state, has control over their airwaves. Iran's air defense systems are completely wiped out. Israel took them out back in October, did more damage here with this attack, striking those targets. I think that the market is now starting to realize what I keep telling you, that this is not going to be a regional war, and possibly predicting an Iranian defeat in the near future. It's going to happen, and it's probably going to be sooner rather than later, and then we'll see if the Iranian regime can survive or not. People rise up, or does Israel end up removing the political leaders, the supreme leader, and others? The military leaders are no longer with us. They are in disarray, looking for a ceasefire, attacking Israel. Iran's contacted other countries to try to intervene to get a ceasefire, appealing to the United States and Israel. It's going to end a whole lot faster, and again, geopolitical issues could have been a lot worse for markets had the United States gotten involved. It could have rattled markets. It may, if the United States gets involved, if a military base ends up being a target. Trump has warned Iran not to do that, or he will unleash a response that will be second to none. Stated that on social media. So we'll see what happens, but it's likely going to end a whole lot sooner than everybody expects. Not going to be a regional war or World War III. The markets have some volatility with it, some further volatility with it. Might be similar to other geopolitical issues. Volatility surrounding it, and then it goes away. It's more often than not the case. I told you it's going to be a long-term war and cause a bear. People saying that this is going to happen and give us the next leg down of the bear market. It's not going to happen. go higher. Eventually, we're going to see the market top out, but it's going to be later in the year. Get volatility with this. It's just going to be some volatility. It could happen at the top, ended up happening sooner. It's likely going to be the bond market cracking and concerns about inflation and a coming recession that end up giving us a market top and rattling markets. It has a potential to volatility in the market, rule that out, but so far my signals remain bullish. The VIX predicted we'd have a rally in the next 2 days. Well, what did we have? We had a rally in the next 2 days. The VIX was correct. We have the Dow up 0.75%, up about 317 points. S&P back above 6,000, up just under 1%, up 56 points. NASDAQ up about 1.5%. The Russell up just over 1%. The VIX was down by 8.21%, down, closing just above 19. Please support the channel. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, please let me know that by supporting the channel. If you follow the link, it'll take you to a secured site and you can donate any amount you want. Channels make their money through sponsors. I choose not to do that. I turn those offers down. And so I just ask that you partner with me, do what you can to help out. Take a moment to step up to the plate. I would really appreciate it. It'd be very encouraging hearing from you. Thank you for your consideration for that. The VIX was up 15.54% on Friday. It was predicting in the next 2 days we'd have an up day for a bounce or a bottom. We got it. We'll be watching. Can we still make a new all-time high? I still think that is likely going to be the case. Could be wrong. We could get a lower high, but I got the guts to tell you what I think. I do think we'll get a bigger pullback. The black candlestick, possible hanging man. We're back down below the 200 period today. Period still below the 20 period. Again, we could end up, if we rally further, we could end up coming back below the lower band here. But predicted today's rally, the VIX got it right. Again, there was an 85% chance we'd have an update in the next 2 days. The VIX was correct. So again, can the rally continue for the S&P 500 to test the February high, or do we end up getting a lower high? I'm open-minded to that, but again, my signals, which are correct, still remain bullish. Told you since the bottom, I think we're going to rally, blow past the 200, and eventually go make new highs. I've talked about the trend line, the previous highs, possibly pointing to the next highs. But I think you're going to likely get a new high, and everyone's going to go, it's a breakout, and then we'll probably get the pullback in all likelihood. That's the way I think it's likely going to play out. Now, we had energy sites being targets over the weekend. It was limited. We saw oil drop back down. So there's hopes the conflict will be contained and that it will end quickly. Being a relief rally. More oil strikes. If we see more oil sites being struck, seeing a surge in oil or something, that could rattle markets. See what happens. But right now, my signals are still bullish. I still think we're going to go make a new high. I think we're going to get a pullback. Could this give us a pullback? If it could, oil sites, more oil sites are targeted, or if, again, the United States is attacked, has the potential to still rattle markets. Not out of the woods yet. Right now, market's shrugging it off for now. Realize what I've been telling you, that this is probably not going to be a regional war. I've told you it's not going to be. Wall Street's thinking now it's probably not going to be. Saw oil drop back down. Now, if energy sites are future targets, we still could see oil go higher. But we got a black candlestick, a possible hanging man candlestick. Got another one today back to back, but this one's lower. We dropped 2%. We're at lower levels than we recovered. So again, if energy sites are targets, we could still see oil move higher. 50 below the 200 here with crude, dropping 2% today. Helped give us a little bit of a relief rally. This move still may not be over if energy sites become future targets. We still see the market rattled by tensions in the Middle East. Say it does go to a new high, but then it's possibly one of the catalysts, or maybe the catalyst, that rattles markets further and gives us the pullback, which again, I don't believe starting the next leg down of the bear market. When we get the pullback, I think it will end up setting up a right shoulder for a massive inverse head and shoulders pattern, as I've talked about. Crude oil daily chart here. Now, nothing's really changed from what I talked about over the weekend. My signals still remain bullish. I told you that, again, Possible they turn bearish with all the tensions in the Middle East or the Fed this week or whatever. Right now, they're still bullish. We can't get a sell-off unless my signals turn bearish, and they're bullish at this point. Down at the bottom, I told you we were going to go up to the 200 period, pull back and then blow past it and go make new highs, or we were going to just blow right past it. Well, we went up to the 200, we paused, and then we blew past it, and here we are within striking distance of new highs. I told you that was going to happen. It is happening. For our geopolitical issue, not moving markets. Markets shrugging it off. Again, likely expecting that it will be contained, which is what I've been saying, and that Iran is going to end up being defeated very quickly. So much weaker than everyone is saying. The conflict started. I've talked about, again, here's the February high. This is the NASDAQ 100 daily chart. Again, I think that you have 3-leg push down, a 5-leg push back up. You're likely going to peak in this area and then pull back. It's possible Bitcoin has already peaked, possibly. Here today, it still had a lower high in place. Back in January, when peaked, the market, the NASDAQ and S&P moved slightly higher. Oftentimes that is the case. They all peaked together on April 7th. So we'll be watching, can Bitcoin make new highs? But sometimes Bitcoin bottoms or tops before the market. We topped in January, the market's topped in February, a few weeks later. We see the same thing here. Did Bitcoin already peak and we still come up here and then reach this level? I still think we'll get a pullback for wave 2. Signals are still bullish. I've talked about at great length and detail. I made the MACD really big here so you can see it. Again, we're still below the signal line. Do we end up turning back up and getting that divergence? I've talked about that in great length and detail late last week and over the weekend. This is what I think is happening. Now, I could be wrong. We could get a lower high. We'll do that over the weekend. If we get the market having a very negative reaction with oil sites being, targets. Right now, oil's down. Markets shrugging off tensions in the Middle East for now. The Fed rattle markets with this conflict couldn't do. I told you, the bears have been telling us all the way up. I have this next leg down of the bear market with the GDP, and the market shrugged it off. The negative GDP back over here. They said it when Moody's downgraded the U.S. With the trade tensions. They said it when the European Union and the U.S. Trade talks fell apart. All this stuff, it's not going to take the market down. We're eventually going to have something that gives us a pullback, but we're not going to take out this low. This move was corrective. This move is impulsive. We're going to pull back at a higher low and go make new highs. Rally's likely going to continue over the summer, probably on into the fall somewhere. Peak later this year. This is not over. At the point we're going to pull back towards the moving averages. I need to tell you, I could be wrong, and we could set up a lower high. The guts to tell you what I think. I think we get the higher high, hit the trend line, and then pull back. Throw the trend line maybe. We're going to reach this level, and I think it's going to be with the Fed. Fed rattles the markets. We get the top with the Fed, and then we get a post-Fed sell-off or something, or the Fed rattle the markets the very day of the press conference with Powell, release of the statement, or again, it can drag out. He still has a 9 count in play. We had the divergence on the RSI, but I told you we still might move to a new high, or it could become a better defined divergence. Right now, it's still got a divergence, and it could become a better defined divergence, or we just may reach a new extreme, like we did over here at the bottom. We just reached a new extreme. There was no bullish divergence with this previous low. Now, I put this count on the S&P 500 last week to show you, again, that possibly we get that lower high. I could be wrong, but I told you I still think, and have continued to say, I think we test this high. And again, we're further away from the trend line from the previous highs than the NASDAQ is. Maybe it's close but no cigar. Again, we have a topping tail at the February high in the weekly time frame. We could exclude the shadow, and it could be just a little bit lower. Certainly possible. But I think you're likely going to move to a new high with the market, and what they did with Bitcoin. It's a breakout! They weren't bullish down here when I called the bottom with the hollow red candlestick. Key support, hitting the rising trend line, hitting horizontal support. Third was extremely bearish, and the bears were telling us we were about to crash and have a Black Monday crash. Bird said, yeah, that's got to be right. And again, I told you we were bottoming. Breadth indicators were at single digits. Fear greed index was at single digits. Major support. I told you we were going to have a massive rally. We got the rally that the bears told us no possible way is this going to happen. And I was right. And I told you we go up to that 200 and then eventually get past it and blow right past it and go make a new high. I still think that's going to be the case. I think we'll eventually pull back and get a higher low. Bears all tell us, oh, I'll get the next leg down to the bear market. You got a problem. This is corrective. This is now impulsive. Bears have a real problem. Same thing as the NASDAQ, though. Again, we can come up here, make a new high, or try to reach the trend line. You can move to a new extreme or better define the diversions. The same thing here with the MACD. I've made it real big so you can see that we're still under the signal line. I still think you've got a good shot that we turn back up, form the diversions here surrounding the Fed, tensions in the Middle East, or whatever the catalyst may be. But I think you've got a shot at this diversions not being yet done and still turning back up. We had the stochastic rolling over, but we can remain at extremes for an extended period of time. Ever since we've had the bottom, we've gotten up here to extremes, and we've been at extremes for an extended period of time. It may not be over. So again, I think we completed wave 4 right here. I think we've got our first wave under construction. Maybe it's done, maybe I'm wrong, and we get a lower high. I don't think so. Open-minded to that, but my guess is we're going to try to make a new high, suck in the herd, and then get the big rug pull back and get your higher low. That's what I think is going to happen. Open-minded, if my signals change, I think my signals are going to remain bullish, likely reverse with the Fed or shortly thereafter, a shot at those 9 counts in the weekly time frame. And again, I want to continue to point out, as I said over the weekend, my signals continue to remain bullish. In order to have a sell-off, my signals had to turn bearish. My signals continue to remain bullish. We got the reversal. My signals marked a bottom at the bottom, predicted this rally. My signals remain bullish. We went sideways right here, but they reverted back to bullish with the bullish reversal of conditions. They remain bullish. We tried to drop below the 10-period moving average there on Friday. Got back above it today. S&P being up nearly 1%. It was up over 1% at the highs of the session. We could still end up getting a larger divergence before all is said and done the week of the Fed here on both the Awesome Oscillator and the MACD. So do keep that in mind. Again, you've got to drop below the 10-period moving average. You got to flip the cloud back to red. The bar is back to red. Take out the 20-period. We're bouncing off the 20-period. I told you, again, I still think it's likely we're going to make a new high, and maybe we reach this trend line from the previous highs. NASDAQ's closer to it than S&P. Still have the 9 counts in play for this week on S&P and NASDAQ. Bar 8 for the S&P is still in play. Bar 9 for the NASDAQ is still in play. I could be wrong about a higher high, and we could get a lower high, and we could see this diversions play out immediately, but so far it hasn't turned my signals back to bearish. Same thing with the NASDAQ. It's within striking distance of the trend line and striking distance of making a new high from the February 19th peak. I still think we could see the some Awesome Oscillator still get green bars. Still see the MACD turn back up and get a divergence above the signal line. It has a divergence, but it's not been above the signal line. I still think that's possible. It doesn't have to do that, but I still think it could. I think we'll get a larger pullback. We've made new recent highs here in June. Bitcoin's already stopped making new highs in May. It still may try to do it, and I've talked about Bitcoin in my latest update. I'll link it at the end of this one, at this video here. We join Bitcoin and make a new high. Back in January, Bitcoin peaked. Well, NASDAQ made a new high in February a few weeks later, and so did the S&P 500. I pointed out to you over the weekend, out to you late last week, my signals remain bullish. As long as my signals remain bullish, we can go higher and maybe test that trend line I've talked about or make a new all-time high on both the S&P and the NASDAQ. This is the S&P daily chart. My signals are still bullish. NASDAQ got that 13 count in the daily time with the S&P 500. And again, I told you we can go a little higher, still reach a new all-time high, or reach this trend line that could be, these highs could be pointing to the next high. You got a 913, and we even completed the 9 there, very same bar. Still got this massive inverse head and shoulders that could be in play. Eventually, that 50 is going to get back above the 200, like we've already seen happen with Bitcoin. I think you could get a new high, rip the herd, get the rug pull, and get the pullback for the wave 2 in the right shoulder. This count may override the 9 count if we don't see it complete in the weekly time frame. I think you got a good shot that it completes. That's why I've been talking about this trend line being reached, still being reached Here is the weekly chart. This is QQQ. NASDAQ 100 has the same count. 9 count here. QQ, the ETF for the NASDAQ 100, getting a 9 count. Now again, the 9 count, as I told you, can mark a turning point. 8 or 9 has to be the high of the count. If you get the count, you go a little higher. S&P has a shot at completing a 9 count as well. Canceled out on the Dow and the Russell. How S&P closes by the end of the week. Try to peak this week. It's possible you complete a 9 count and S&P completes an 8 count, break to a new high or hit the trend lines I'm talking about, and then you begin a pullback. If we see the S&P complete the 9 count, next week, NASDAQ might go a little higher than this 9 count, just like we went a little bit higher over here. Sideways, we saw the 13 count recently. In the daily time frame, we've gone a little higher. Counts are telling us price exhaustion is taking place, but oftentimes, talked about with your phone, sometimes it dies immediately. Sometimes you get your phone and it's a little bit of a charge left in it, then it dies out. And that's what the 9 counts present. Sometimes they play out immediately, other times you go a little bit more. Here, the 8 bar was the bottom of the count, as I've talked about. This is the QQQ weekly chart. Here is the S&P weekly chart. We're up to bar 8. Again, you got to be above the bar from 4 weeks ago. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got to be above this red bar. Next week, the close of this red bar this week, okay, and you'll still complete the 8 count. Next week, we would have to be above the bar right here. The next bar after that, bar 5 in the count. You'd have to be above that bar for the count to complete. The count may get canceled out. We had it cancel out over here. Here, as we went sideways. This could get canceled out. If we get it, though, it could mean that we're about to get the pullback. The lower high scenario, we may get the pullback sooner rather than later. I still think you got a good shot at reaching a new all-time high or even reaching this trend line. And again, the larger inverse head and shoulders, as I've talked about. But we're up to bar 8. And then I think we pull back towards the 50 period, pull back towards the 200 and the 50 in the daily, try to fill this gap, moving towards the 50-week moving average, and then I think you establish a higher low. We'll see. Does the count get canceled out this week, or does it complete as we go into next week? The 8 bar this week could be the high of the count, just like the 8 bar here was the low of the count. The 8 or 9 has to be the high of the count above bar 7. Right here in order to be a perfected signal. So we got to clear bar 7, and then we got to see bar 8 or 9 be the high of the count. NASDAQ peaks out with bar 9 this week. It's possible we peak out with bar 8 this week of the S&P. Did you hear the word possible in there? Again, I believe we're headed to these levels, watching to see if my signals begin to turn. Could be wrong. We could get a lower high. I'm not Nostradamus. If you're looking for a fortune teller, you are in the wrong place. I'm a trader. I look at support and resistance levels. I'm still bullish. My signals are still bullish. I think we're going to peak, and I think we'll get a pullback. We'll give us a higher low for wave 2. I think this is wave 1, as I've said. I think we have a major bottom here. Controlling the bears. Over the weekend, I did it again. Their Black Monday nonsense. On us, we're going to get the next leg down of the bear market. Huge problems because of it's corrective. The sell-off's been corrective. Pushback up has been impulsive. They've got huge problems. And if we peak and pull back, we're still likely going to go make new highs. Once we see the weekly signals all begin to turn bearish and eventually come back and take this level out, signals remain bearish. Watching these counts on the S&P, on the NASDAQ 100, if I'm wrong about making a higher high or maybe reaching this trend line, the S&P is a little further away from it than NASDAQ, but I told you if we do get the lower high scenario, well, then maybe we have a downward sloping trend line. That's still possible. I'm open-minded to that, but right now my signals, which are correct, remain bullish. That if we did sell off the 13 count, the 13.9 that we had previously, the S&P 500 in the daily time frame could override this count. But we got the 13.9. Sometimes you go a little higher, and we could complete that 9 count in the weekly time frame. In this time frame, we could complete it, turn with bar 8 or 9. Told you the S&P completed the 13 and the 9 signal. We had the 13 here give us the higher low setup with the 9.13, the 13.9 over here. We got the count, went a little bit higher, and then we went sideways and eventually got this. Again, we got the 13 here. We can go a little higher, complete the 9 count in the weekly time frame, with bar 8 this week being the high or bar 9. I think NASDAQ could overthrow that level a little bit. above its 9 count if it completes this week. If S&P has its 9 count be the high of the count. S&P 8 bar could be the high of the count this week with the Fed. Certainly possible. Looking for a move up in this area for a higher high, or maybe reaching the trend line, and then that pullback towards the 50, the 200, the 50 still rising towards the 200. Again, I eventually think that we'll see mark weekly here. It's daily. Just fix that real fast. I think we'll eventually join Bitcoin and get into Golden Cross and eventually moving to a new high. And again, we could see a breakout and have it fail and then get the pullback if we move to a new high or even reach this trend line that I've talked about. And striking distance, both a new all-time high and within striking this trend line. We have the 13.9 and we just overthrow it a little bit and go up here and then see the weekly signals play out, the 9 count in the weekly time frame. I'm watching Nvidia closely. It got a 9.9 signal. It's gone here sideways. We've gone a little bit higher. Does it go higher or turn? Does this 9.9 reversal pattern produce reversal? This 9 count marked the bottom. We had a 9.9 and it marked the bottom. We're seeing the 50 move closer to that 200 period. So again, could the 9 counts in the weekly time frame play out and we eventually see a pullback? Get the 9.9 in the daily time frame on Nvidia here. Just bring it up a little bit closer. Here we've got the 9 count this week. The same thing the NASDAQ is doing. So again, we did move to a new high. Bar 9 is now the high of the count. We start off the week with a rally. 9 count, we had a topping tail. Do we see something like that? Here we had a topping tail at bar 8. Bar 8 was the high of the count. Bar 9 was not the high of the count. Just watching this, got it on both NASDAQ 100 and here on Nvidia. Now, Bitcoin had the 9 count, but again, it's not moved above the May high. It's gone sideways. It got canceled out. That happened, but again, just like in January, February, Bitcoin peaked in January. The market peaked a few weeks later in February. The May high, the May 22nd high on Bitcoin is holding. See something similar to what we saw in January and February between the market and Bitcoin, possibly. I'm watching the count here on Nvidia. I'm watching it on the NASDAQ. Got that 8 count on the S&P 500.